Hi, Jochen Schlöffel, InnerSpace Explorers. It's been a while, and today we want to start again with regular videos. And the first one we want to do is a request about my bookshelf. So many people ask me what I can recommend and what I have, and so yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of my stuff is in storage because I've moved a lot of times during the past 20 years, and a lot of my stuff is in boxes. But I have a bit of it in my apartment, obviously. I lost, unfortunately, a lot of it, so if you have books from me and haven't given back, now it's the time to do it. But nevertheless, I want to show you a couple of things that I can recommend that I like, a couple of rare ones. So let's have a look. It's a bit mixed here. Actually, on top you can see I have still a lot of old dive magazines, like all the old Aquacorps, Deep Tech, and all the stuff from the beginning, from the early days of technical diving. So that's always pretty nice to go through these. Actually, a few of them is pictures of mine. So yeah, that's pretty interesting from time to time. So when it comes to books, I have a pretty broad collection of maritime history, and especially if you're into wreck diving, that's it's always an interesting source and an interesting way of educating yourself about the history from boat building, which helps you to identify wrecks, for example, and to get a better understanding of how a wreck's built when you dive it. And then also obviously history, what has been sunk, what kind of battles have been, and so on. And then obviously pure diving. So when we, on top there's obviously tons of boat building stuff here. But yeah, it's a guide for teaching scuba divers with special needs. There's actually some funny stuff. There's more like some diving cartoons. Then Dive into History. That's a super popular series done by Henry Keats and George Farr, and that's US submarines. Then an all-time classic, Mixed Gas Diving from Tom Mount and Brad Gilliam. A really old book, but back in the day that was like the thing you had to read. That's one that I haven't seen a lot, but that's very interesting. The Expedition and Diving Operations Handbook by Steve Arrington. Very nice, very interesting. Then we have, that's actually collectible stuff. That's all from the late 50s, early 60s. A lot of things that would be complete no-goes today. That's about like amateur archaeology and how to recover amphoras and stuff, so you definitely go to jail for that today. That's dive sites around the coast of the Mediterranean, how to build dive gear yourself, the ABC of scuba diving. Yeah, that's a piece of history, basically. Then we have the second classic one, Deep Diving, also Brad Gilliam. Very interesting, especially back in the day when deep diving was still a thing. That's diving in rivers. That's an old rebreather manual from the RAB. So that's a lot of diving in Austria. That's basically all guides for different dive sites. That's diving on Elba, diving in the east of Germany, Austria again. That's also funny. That's scuba diving. That's from 1970 something. That's an edition from 91, but I mean, when you look at the book itself, it's a lot of things that have definitely are from the late 70s. But back in the day, that was like the book you had to read when you wanted to start diving. Even 91, so it's pretty old. That's again the Dive into History series. That's Volume 1 Warships. So when you want to dive wrecks off the US coast, that's pretty good. That's Dive Guide Germany. That's treasure hunting for professionals. How to work with certain gear. A simple guide to rebreather diving from Steve Barsky. Actually, pretty cool guy. Wrote a couple of really interesting books. Then we have also from Henry Keats and Brian Scarry, the complete wreck diving guide. NSS Cave Diving Manual. Spearfishing for skin and scuba divers, also from Stephen Barsky. That's an interesting one. Never sure if that was just available online. Actually, not too sure. Keyline Publishing. Treasure, the Business and Technology, from Philip S. Olin. That's a super interesting book. So if you want to start treasure hunting, that's probably the thing you need. Shooting Underwater Video. Handbook of Technical Diving was a German publication. Wreck diving in the Baltic. Electronics in scuba diving. Also pretty historic. Basically should actually be more like here. It's also from the early 70s. A handbook for the underwater treasure hunter. It's basically the same book, just another edition. That's the handbook for the firefighting diver or firefighter diver, whatever you want to call it. Handbook how to handle diving accidents. What do we have here? That's an Italian book. Immersioni Surreality. It's about wreck diving, but it's in Italian. But also pretty old. Scuba equipment maintenance. Scuba diving with disabilities. I was actually teaching that for a while. That's video filming. Modern treasure hunting from Garrett, which is a company that produces metal detectors. Then another Stephen Barsky books, small boat diving, actually pretty good. So if you have a small boat, there's a couple of good tips in this one. Solo diving. Remembers me on one of the last videos. That's GV stuff. Carries in diving. Also Stephen Barsky. So it looks like I've been really into his books for a while. But pretty good. Pretty interesting. Yeah, the gold ship is about the discovery of a big treasure. That's some pretty good stuff. The Ultimate Wreck Diving Guide, the Advanced Wreck Diving Guide, and the Primary Wreck Diving Guide from Gary Gentill, which was probably one of the most influencing divers in the wreck diving in the early days. Pretty interesting books. Another rebreather book. That's a really nice one. That's from a collector of antique dive gear, Gerd Augustinsky. It was a limited edition, and the guy is actually, there's a personal note in here, but the guy has one of the biggest collections in hardhead dive gear, and basically made a book about his collection. So really nice. It's one of my favorites. Then one of those classics, sport diving. It's also from the 80s probably. Yeah. And then there's a lot of other stuff in between. There's, for example, that's wreck diving in the Adriatic Sea. It's a really nice one about a lot of wrecks that we already dove years ago. Pretty nice book, actually written by divers that spent years exploring these wrecks. You can see that's not all really sorted. Here's a couple of other ones. Mastering Rebreathers, really good book. Dive Sites of the Philippines. What's that? Enriched as a Paddy manual. DR, probably I should have had a look in these shelves before I do this. The Ultimate Rebreather, CCR, DR Rebreather, Technical Diving is also a German book. What do we have here? Technical Diving, another German publication. Scientific Diving Techniques, also relatively rare, best publishing company, from John Heine. Yeah, gives you a couple of pretty nice nice views into a total different way of diving than what we normally do. And as I've been teaching things like that as well. And then, yeah, obviously there's a couple of cool picture books, I mean, like coffee table books, freshwater. Yeah, classical coffee table books. I have plenty of these. It's more like a collectible. Sophie de Waal. Also super nice photography. Yeah. Then there's another absolute classic, Cave Diving, from Martin Farr. Awesome book, gives you a lot of in-depth view in the history of cave diving. I can highly recommend that. That's the 52 Days of Leros. That was, it's about the history of the German occupation on a Greek island that we had an expedition on a couple of years ago. So whenever I'm somewhere there, I try to get some literature as well. That's about 40 wrecks off Sardinia. You may have noticed that if you check the video channel, there's something about a wreck we found there. So I found this in a local shop, had to buy it. There's Dive Guide, Red Sea. That's another Gary Gentle, the Technical Diving Handbook. Also pretty, I mean, a lot of these books are more interesting from a standpoint of curiosity, like, hey, how was it done 20, 30 years ago, or something like that. So it's not like I want to recommend these books like, here's written how it should be done. It's more like, yeah, it's interesting. It's more like going into a museum. What do we have? There's freediving stuff there. What do we have there? Yeah, that's another historical on the German Kriegsmarine. Also pretty interesting. I mean, if you're into wreck diving, you can find a lot of interesting information about these ships, where they've been sank, how they've been built. So in fact, when you dive one of these wrecks, that's really interesting way of preparing yourself. That's freediving stuff from Christian Redl. Yeah, something completely different. What do we have? Scuba diving Malta, Elba. Yeah, here's a couple of absolute classics. That's an original first edition from Hans Hass. That's actually from 1955. Fantastic book that I have since my childhood, about the very early days of sport diving. Yeah, that's one of my absolute treasures. And there's more. There's Jacques Cousteau, the Shark. That's another Hans Haas. That's also a really old Hans Haas photography on the bottom of the sea. That's from 1942. So yeah, awesome, in really nice condition. Another real classic that inspired me a lot as a young guy, John D. Craig, Danger is My Business. It's from 1943, also in awesome condition. So if you can get your hand on that, I highly recommend it. Fantastic. Introduction to skin diving. Deco for Divers, I think I mentioned that in one of my latest videos. That's a French book about technical diving where ISE is featured. That's also wreck diving in Sardinia. Hunting Sunken Treasure. Underwater Photography, what's that? Dive Guide. Switzerland. Oh man, that could probably go on for a long time. There's a couple of old deco tables. Yeah, and then here it continues. There's a couple of interesting Cliff Cussler books. I mean, you probably know Cliff Cussler as somebody who writes adventure novels, but if you're familiar with his stuff, you know that the Numa that is he found it in reality. And there's the Sea Hunter series is about actually the discoveries that he made with his actual Numa. So the guys went out and found wrecks and explored them. So it's pretty interesting. And then obviously the Shadow Divers and the Last Dive. So these classics about this unfortunate accidents on that U-boat wreck in front of New York. There's a lot of stuff in front here. Submerged also. Adventures of America, Most Elite Underwater Archaeology Team. Pretty interesting reading as well. What else do we have? Baltic Sea Expedition 2008. Oh, that's actually a picture book that we did about an expedition that we did. Yeah, it's not publicly available. And then. Yeah, there's a lot of more of these coffee table books. All the things from Robert Ballard. There's another one on the German Kriegsmarine, legendary shipwrecks. There's another really nice Realm of the Seahorse. It's from a Greek photographer. This the wrecks here. This pretty interesting. Graf Zeppelin is the first German aircraft carrier. That's about German U-boats. There should be more about German U-boats. I have no idea where these are. There's one of my absolute favorite picture books. It's from Christoph Gehrig. It's a super nice black and white coffee table book with amazing photos. Especially for me being a photographer myself. Some really nice stuff in there. It's also a limited edition that I have for years. I actually can't remember from when it is. Maybe it says something. Yeah, that's from '94. So yeah, probably not available anymore. So yeah, let's have a look in the fridge. Maybe there's some more stuff. Doesn't really. Don't ask about the fridge. Yeah, Titanic expeditions. That's about the wreck of the Edinburgh, one of the gold treasures in history. It's actually, that's from the former eastern part of Germany. Also pretty interesting. Yeah, it's about the Tirpitz. It's interesting what we all find here. Yeah, that's about lost aircraft. It's also pretty interesting. I actually talked to this guy a couple of times because you know probably that we found a couple of aircrafts from World War II in one of these lakes around Munich, and started to explore them. And yeah, there's more dive stuff. Complete Dive Guide Caribbean. Nope. Adventures Underwater. Shipwrecks of Florida. Home sweet home. That's all different stuff. Yeah, that's the history of Walchensee. That's actually the lake where we found these aircraft wrecks. It's a pretty cool book as well. Just going through these, I noticed tons of books missing that are either in storage or somebody borrowed them and never brought them back. It's actually one of the reasons why I stopped borrowing books to people, because normally they never come back, and that's something I have a real issue with. Prefer to keep them in the fridge. Yeah, I mean, that could probably go on for a while, but hope that gave you a little bit of an idea. If you're interested in more of that, also remember the museum that I promised when we finish this 100 patterns. If you have a look here, that's that's just the living room table, and that's probably 1% of the stuff I have regarding regulators and other things that I collected over the years. So yeah, if you have questions, if you want to know more about a specific book or something like that, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you like it. Give us thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and see you next Friday. Bye bye.